Hey everybody, hope you're having a great day. My name's Eric, and I'm here to show you something brand new I've been working on. If you're watching this video, that means that this is already up and available completely for free on my Gumroad. Please check it out, make some music with it. It would be a thing I'd really appreciate. So let's begin. Some of you probably already know what a ring modulator is, or a ring mod, but for those that don't, I'll explain real quick. So a ring mod takes a simple waveform, like this sine wave or this square wave, and it multiplies it by an incoming audio signal. To give a brief example of what that might look like, if you took this sine wave and you took this square wave and combined them, you'd get a new wave that looked like that. A little bit more angular and sharp. If you adjust the frequencies so they're not identical, the balance between the two waves will shift. And often there will be a lot of movement. You can also adjust the amplitude and balance the two waves differently with each other in that way by making one wave physically larger. Now, here's an example of how a ring mod sounds on Ableton's stock grand piano. Here's completely clean. Now, I'm turning the ring mod on, and I'm keeping the dry and wet blend at 50%. Dry and wet on this device can be adjusted separately, so you can adjust your dry with this knob and your wet with this knob, just because I like the control that gives you versus dry wet, a single dry wet knob. I like being able to control the ring modulated signal separately. Now here's a sine wave. Here's a very fast sine wave. Here is a very slow sine wave. That is not the only wave shape we can do. I tried to keep my bases covered with the wave shapes. You can, of course, turn it off and get a none wave. You can also do sine, square, up, down, triangle, and noise if you would like. Obviously, in noise mode, the frequency knob does nothing. And I think that noise frequency, ring modulating with noise, it can be a little difficult to control and leash, and in fact, sometimes I like to adjust the amplitude. You can use the amplitude as sort of a dry wet before the dry wet, because it lessens the volume of the signal that your input is being multiplied by. I think that hiss is a little bit distinct and different from Ableton's built-in erosion, so I left it in, but it's not what you'll be using this device for primarily. Let me walk you through all the controls, and then I'll show you some demos on audio, and then I'll show you the wacky little synth version. Alright. Dry and wet are self-explanatory. You leave them at 1, and you get exactly all your audio through. You leave it at 0, and you get none of your audio through. And you can multiply your audio by up to 3 times, just so you can really crank the dry or really crank the wet if you need to. Also, I should say, I am super new to Max for Live. I originally made this as a plug data patch, but wanted to package it in a simpler way so I could share it with people. I'm super new to coding generally, or, I mean, patching isn't really coding, but I'm super new to this ecosystem, and I'm learning. So if you have any thoughts or notes about this, please share them down below, and I'm really happy to hear and to learn from you. So both oscillators have a wave shape selector, frequency, and amplitude. Frequency adjusts how many oscillations per second there are in the wave. So, for example, 440, it is now tuned to an A. And you can really hear if I play the A, it sounds so different than if I play any of the other notes. Because it's tuned to that frequency. And one really fun thing to do with a ring modulator is to tune it loosely to the frequency of what you're playing. Amplitude just allows you to give it a little more or less oomph. Like I said, it can be used as a dry-wet knob before you actually hit your wet circuit. It can also be used when you switch into complex mode and you're combining the two oscillators. Oscillator 2 in mono mode does absolutely nothing. In complex mode, oscillator 2 becomes what's known as the modulator to oscillator 1, which is the carrier, and the two waves can combine in fun and interesting ways to make complex waveforms. If you do it really slow, you sort of get LFO type behavior from the modulator. Where you can hear these really slow changes being made, but you can also go up even faster and get some more complex wave shaping. A good way to blend between the two is by using these amplitude knobs. You can get very little. You can get very little of one wave and a lot of another. The last mode is, instead of complex mode or mono mode, you can set it to stereo, and this will put oscillator 1 in your left ear and oscillator 2 in your right. You may notice a change in the balance of the waves, something, for example, like a square wave and a sine wave. Even if they're tuned exactly the same, the square wave will sound louder to your ear. You can use the amplitude knob to adjust that and make them sound more balanced. Now, the last feature that I want to show you, I think is really cool. Some people who know more about ring modulation might not be as impressed, but I included multiplication mode is the default because I think of ring modulation as a multiplicative procedure. But if you click it, you can go into divide mode, and now your input is being divided by the wave you have over here, not multiplied by it. Originally, this resulted in very harsh tones, so automatically it is leveled so that the output dividing signal will be bound to your input dry signal. So these amplitude knobs can be used to balance, these two waves relationship, but you'll have to use the wet knob to control volume here, just because the division was very difficult to tame. But it sounds like a very distinct distortion to me. Very digital and unique. Sort of like a wave shaper. Now, let me play some Ableton stock samples to give you some audio examples. this Max for Live device so wants to be friends with the many modulators in Ableton. I almost built in a couple modulators, but then I realized whatever I built is going to be inherently kind of limited, and using Ableton's own modulators, you have infinite options, really. I mean, you could modulate modulators, and you could get really deep and complex sounds out of this ring modulator. So I would encourage you to absolutely explore with cross modulation, with multiple modulators, modulating frequency, wave shape. You're going to get a lot of squelchy, ridiculous noises, but you're also going to find some unique stuff in there. Another trick I'm going to recommend right off the bat is, if you like the ring modulator, try putting a distortion or an overdrive or a fuzz or a whatever right after it. Dirt pedals and ring modulators are really friends, because ring modulators bring out some specific harmonics, and that character is taken by the drive or the distortion. If you tweak it slow enough, it can really start to sound like a tremolo kind of effect. I intentionally had the knob set up kind of logarithmically, so you have a lot of room to maneuver in the low range and really dial in that not quite a tremolo, not quite a reverb, spacey sound, but I gave you a lot of range up here too. So if you know the tune that you're looking for, just enter it right in and get that specific frequency you want. Tuned right, this can get those rattly, is there something on the speaker tones. It can get those slowed down, not quite reverb, not quite tremolo, what is that? And if you tweak the complex waveform enough, I've even been able to get sounds out of it that sound remarkably like a phaser. So I'd really encourage you to look around and really delve into it. Now, the one other thing I want to show you, and this is a separate download, so obviously you do not have to use this at all if you don't like, but a lot of my favorite ring modulators from history have a carrier out, and that just lets you play the oscillator like a synth. So to keep that spirit, this only has a volume control and then all the normal controls that the oscillator has, so it can be played with the frequency knobs and all that. The one extra thing I added is I threw a key track in there, so either synth can be played by you on purpose as well. Unlike on the actual ring mod, now multiply and divide. Either multiply these waves by each other or divide these waves by each other, taking it from FM to some other weird thing that I'm sure someone knows the name for. You can key track just one and control the voltage independently with the knob for the other one. And although it's noisy and drony and weird, I think some people are going to find some fun uses for that little carrier out type synth. So I'm going to encourage you guys to look at the link in the description, head over to my Gumroad, and grab them both. Again, they're completely free. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoy it. And please let me know if you make anything cool using these tools, because I love to hear it. That's what keeps me working, you know? All right. Have a good day.